making headlines, President Dr. Muiz calls the international community to hold Israel accountable for what he described as acts of terrorism and violation of international law in Palestine. The president announces an ambitious goal to transform the Maldives into a developed country by 2040, and the president illustrates the urgent global crisis using a compelling world chart at the UNGA.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to PSM News. I'm your host Malak Ahmad Fayaz. Now for the news in detail. President of the Maldives, Dr. Mohammad Muizzu, delivers a powerful address during the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, urging the international community to hold Israel accountable for what he described as acts of terrorism and violations of international law in Palestine.
Calling attention to the ongoing conflict in Gaza, President Muiz stated that Israel must be held accountable for these acts of terrorism, for the violation of international law and UN resolutions. The president strongly condemned Israel's actions in Gaza, describing them as a massacre and genocide. He went on to say that the ongoing massacre, the genocide by Israel in Gaza, is a travesty of justice and the international system. He also added that violation of a right by any country must not be tolerated.
Israel's targeting of journalists, the eyes and ears of humanity, the killing of journalists, Palestinian journalists, Lebanese journalists, Al Jazeera journalists, the closure of Al Jazeera officers. How can we interpret this as anything other than brutal attempts to prevent the world from knowing about the crimes taking place? Israel must be held accountable for these acts of terrorism, for these violations of international law and UN resolutions.
The president also emphasized that Israel is systematically targeting journalists, including those from Palestine, Lebanon, and Al Jazeera, along with closing Al Jazeera offices as attempts to obscure the crimes occurring in Gaza from the world. In his address, Dr. Muiz reaffirmed the Maldives' unwavering support for a two-state solution, calling for the establishment of a sovereign and independent Palestinian state. The president also welcomed Palestine's decision to be seated with other member states in the General Assembly. Dr. Muiz's speech underscored the Maldives' strong advocacy for Palestinian rights and justice, aligning with its long-standing support for the Palestinian cause on the international stage.
In a bold move, President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu announces an ambitious goal to transform the Maldives into a developed country by 2040. He made the statement at the 79th United Nations General Assembly, UNGA 79.
President Dr. Muiz emphasized that destiny is shaped by choices and expressed confidence that this goal is achievable with a clear plan in place. The president highlighted the Maldives' journey from being one of the poorest countries at independence in 1965 to reaching middle-income status in just 5 decades.
By 2040, I wish to see the Maldives as a full-fledged developed nation. A nation that commands respect, is relevant, and one that embodies resilience. A society that is inclusive and just. A country that exemplifies sustainability and democratic governance.
He stated that boosting productivity is key to economic transformation, which will involve reforming institutions, increasing state capacity, and leveraging the private sector. He stressed the importance of developing a digital economy that could contribute up to 15% of GDP by 2030, noting that enhancing digital connectivity is crucial for inclusive development and economic resilience. Additionally, he emphasized the need to foster new industries and strengthen the financial sector while also expanding the tourism sector. Ultimately, President Muiz envisions a future of inclusive development where all citizens have equal access to opportunities, women and youth play significant roles, and every Maldivian has access to adequate housing.
In a powerful address, President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu illustrates the urgent global crisis using a compelling world chart.
The chart starkly displayed countries marked in red, indicating those grappling with serious challenges, while green, representing stability, was nearly absent. This visual effectively underscored a crucial truth: humanity is in crisis, often due to man-made factors. As he addressed the 79th United Nations General Assembly UNGA 79, the President emphasized the myriad issues facing the world today. He urged the international community to acknowledge these pressing challenges and take decisive actions.
Let's not mince our words today. Humanity is in deep trouble, facing an ever-growing list of crises: conflict, poverty, hunger, climate change, the wealth gap, the cost of living crisis, migration, occupation, opioid addiction. The list goes on and on and on.
The President called for nations to unite in harmony rather than remain a united nations in misery. He stressed that these are critical times that demand a proactive response to address threats that transcend borders, including armed conflict, terrorism, and organized crime. He argued that safeguarding fundamental rights is integral to this effort. The President condemned ongoing genocide in Gaza as a travesty of justice, highlighting the destructions of homes, hospitals, and lives. He called for accountability, urging the international community to recognize and support the establishment of a sovereign and independent Palestinian state based on pre-1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. In a significant moment, he welcomed the decision to allow Palestinian representatives to sit with the assembly for the first time, asserting that now is the time to ensure Palestine becomes a full member of the UN. Reflecting on the Sustainable Development Goals endorsed in 2015, he lamented that 6 years later we are on track for less than one-fifth of those targets. The recent UN report highlighted that the world is failing to deliver on these commitments. He stated that it cannot be allowed for a pact for the future to become just another document.
Maldives and the United Kingdom UK hold significant discussions with the Maldives requesting for assistance in the environment and energy sector. The discussions were held between the Minister of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, Tariq Ibrahim, and UK's Minister of Climate Change, Kerry McCarthy. The meeting was held on the sidelines of the 79th United Nations General Assembly, UNGA 79. The discussions focused on the climate changes experienced by both countries and the efforts exerted to protect endangered animals. Both ministers also discussed top priorities from the field and the ongoing projects in the Maldives in joint collaboration with the UK. The Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy stated that the meeting played a pivotal role in further enhancing the bilateral ties between the two states, while enhancing the support provided in the field of climate change. The ministry further expressed optimism that the meeting will further strengthen cooperation between the two states. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu extends heartfelt congratulations to Sri Lanka's new Prime Minister, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. In a social media post, President Dr. Muizzu expressed confidence in the leadership abilities of Prime Minister Dr. Harini, stating that Sri Lanka is bound to make remarkable progress under her leadership. The President expressed his eagerness to work closely with Sri Lanka's Prime Minister, aiming to further enhance and strengthen the long-standing bilateral ties between the Maldives and Sri Lanka, two neighboring nations with deep-rooted connections. Dr. Harini was appointed as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka by Sri Lanka's newly elected President, Anurara Kumara Dissanayake. She served as the country's 16th Prime Minister. Furthermore, Dr. Harini served as an active parliamentarian representing the National People's Power Alliance alongside President Dissanayake. She was elected as a parliamentarian in 2020. The new Prime Minister, Dr. Harini, has successfully earned a PhD in the field of social anthropology from the University of Edinburgh. She is the third female Prime Minister serving in Sri Lanka. Minister of Health Dr. Abdullah Khalil participates in the 12th High-Level Officials Meeting HLOM of the Asia-Pacific Region Forum of Health and Environment, APR-FHE, as the head of delegation of the Maldives.
The forum will focus on discussing potential strategies that can be implemented in response to health and environmental emergencies. The Ministry of Health stated that the forum plays a crucial role in enhancing intergovernmental collaboration of Maldives to tackle these pressing challenges. Additionally, the forum will also see preparations for the 5th ministerial meeting, which is scheduled to take place on September 26. Furthermore, the Asia-Pacific Regional Forum on Health and Environment emphasizes the knowledge sharing and policy advocacy to protect health from environmental risks, promoting a comprehensive approach aligned with global frameworks. The Health Ministry stated that this forum presents the Maldives an opportunity to gain technical expertise and resources, contributing to the development of sustainable and cost-effective healthcare and environmental policies. The forum, established in 2004, is a key platform to discuss measures which can be implemented to address the complex relationship between environmental factors and public health outcomes across the Asia-Pacific region. The ministry stated that Maldivian delegations will collaborate with delegations from other countries within the region to address the shared concerns.
Maldives and Australia holds a series of comprehensive discussions aimed at strengthening military ties.
The first defense policy talks were held between the Maldives National Defense Force, MNDF, and the Australian Defense Force, ADF, at the MNDF headquarters. The Maldives delegation was led by the Vice Chief of Defense Force, Brigadier General Ahmad Ghias, while the Australian delegation was headed by the Assistant Secretary of the North and South Asia branch at the Australian Department of Defence, Karen Redford. During the meeting, Vice Chief of Defence Force Ghias underscored the importance of the partnership between the two nations, emphasizing Australia's enduring support in advancing the capabilities of the MNDF. He also expressed gratitude to the Australian government for its steadfast commitment to supporting the Maldives, particularly during national emergencies and natural disasters. Meanwhile, Australia's head of delegation, Karen Redford, reaffirmed Australia's dedication to supporting the MNDF. She highlighted the importance of expanding ongoing programs focused on capacity building and skill development within the Maldives' defense sector. MNDF stated that the discussions aim to serve as a platform to enhance bilateral cooperation in key areas such as maritime safety and security, professional military education, information sharing, and capacity building across a range of defense-related skills. Maldives and Australia both expressed optimism for the future of the defense partnership, agreeing that this dialogue was only the beginning of a deeper and more robust bilateral defense relationship. The discussions reflect both nations' shared commitment to regional stability and security. This inaugural dialogue sets the stage for future cooperation, marking a new chapter in the Australia-Maldives defense relationship. Political ties between the Maldives and Australia were established in 1974. Ever since, Australia has been actively providing support to the Maldives in various fields.
The Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean Resources signs an agreement with the Maldives Industrial Fisheries Company Limited, MIFCO, to hand over the establishment of an ice plant and an ice storage in Mido and Bandido in Dal Atoll and Funado in Shavini Atoll. The agreement was signed by MIFCO's Chief Financial Officer, CFO, Ilyas Hanif, and Financial Controller of the Fisheries Ministry, Inaz Nasir.
The project, financed by the government's Public Sector Investment Programs, PSIP, has a total value of $1.6 million. MIFCO has indicated that each ice plant is priced at $518,806 and works are to be completed within an 8-month period according to the contract. The ice plants to be established on 3 islands will each have a capacity of 30 tons, while the ice storage facilities will accommodate 50 tons. This initiative is part of a broader project to establish ice plants across 11 islands. The ministry disclosed that decisions have been made to establish the ice plants in Kurudufush City, Komando in Shavian Atoll, Nafar in Lavian Atoll, Rasto in Alif Alif Atoll, Wevang in Mim Atoll, and Ratafando in Gaf Dal Atoll. Of these, funds have been secured for the establishment of 5 ice plants from the Saudi Fund for Development. The remaining 6 ice plants will be funded by the government. The ministry stated that the initiative of establishing ice plants aims to address the challenges fishing vessels face in obtaining ice. In addition to this initiative, the government has been exerting several efforts aimed at enhancing the fishing sector. Under these efforts, the government is working to increase the capacity of MIFCO and create a system which facilitates fishermen to obtain various services conveniently.
The Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean Resources announces that more than 50% of vessels have now been registered in the National Register of Fishermen. The National Register of Fishermen aims to formally identify fishermen engaged in state-recognized income-generating activities, aligning their profession with other recognized occupations. One of its key objectives is to ensure that those defined as professional fishermen are actively participating in legitimate income-generating work. Initiated by President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu, the National Register of Fishermen is part of his presidential pledges and was opened to the public on February 16th. The ministry reports that its teams have been actively visiting islands to provide information on the registration process, having reached 11 atolls thus far. The compilation of this register is expected to help retain economic benefits within the Maldives by reducing the reliance on foreign involvement in the fishing industry. In line with government promises, the ministry will also facilitate information regarding reef fisheries, recreational fishing and sports fishing activities. France now has one of the worst public deficits in the modern history, the newly installed finance minister said, confirming new taxes on the wealthy and big businesses are on the table to get finances back in order.
The deficit is expected to reach 5.6% or more of national output this year, almost double the European Union limit. Armand told broadcaster France Inter that apart from one or two of crisis years in the past 50 years, the country is now facing one of the worst deficits in its history. He stressed that the situation is grave. The new government under Conservative Prime Minister faces a parliamentary gauntlet in the coming months. Ministers must try to get a 2025 budget with steps to repair public finances through the National Assembly lower house, divided roughly into 3 after July's inconclusive snap election. The new Prime Minister can count on support from Conservatives and President Emmanuel Macron's much-reduced camp, but the NFP Left Alliance and the far-right National Rally could topple the government at any time in a confidence vote if they join forces. In a Sunday interview, the Prime Minister brought targeted tax rises on wealthy people or some large companies into play as part of a plan to right the ship. Barnier is expected to present his draft budget early next month, an unprecedented delay from the usual October 1st deadline after Macron took all summer to name a new government chief.
Israel announces dozens of new airstrikes on Hezbollah strongholds in Lebanon, a day after 558 people, including 50 children, were killed in the deadliest bombardment since a devastating war in 2006.
Israel's overnight strikes on southern Lebanon came after it said it had killed a large number of militants when it hit about 1,600 suspected Hezbollah targets around the country. Hezbollah said Tuesday it had launched volleys of missiles at Israeli military bases hours after 180 of its projectiles and an unmanned aerial vehicle crossed into Israeli airspace, sending people in the city of Haifa running for shelter. The Israeli military said more than 50 projectiles were fired into northern Israel in less than 10 minutes on Tuesday morning, most of which were intercepted. In Lebanon, Monday's raids killed 558 people, including 50 children and 94 women, according to the health ministry. The United Nations said tens of thousands of Lebanese had fled their homes since Monday in the face of the intensifying Israeli bombardment. UN Refugee Agency spokesman Matthew Saltmarsh said tens of thousands of people were forced from their homes yesterday and overnight, and the numbers continue to grow, adding that the toll on civilians is unacceptable. Longtime foes Hezbollah and Israel have been locked in near-daily cross-border exchanges of fire for nearly a year since Israel started its attacks on Gaza, stating to destroy Hamas. Hezbollah, which has been fighting Israel for decades, and other Iran-backed militants in the region have been drawn into the violence. Monday's bombardment of Lebanon was by far the largest and deadliest not just in the past year, but since the Israel-Hezbollah war in the summer of 2006. That war killed 1,200 people in Lebanon, mostly civilians and 160 Israelis, and devastated large swaths of Hezbollah's strongholds.
Mikel Arteta stands by Arsenal's defensive tactics in the explosive Premier League clash with Manchester City, saying he would have been thick not to learn from previous clashes.
Leandro Trossard was shown a second yellow card for kicking the ball away when Arsenal were 2-1 up at the end of the first half at the Etihad on Sunday. After the break, the Gunners sat back and soaked up pressure, ceding almost all the possession to the Premier League champions until John Stones netted a stoppage time equaliser. Arsenal, who had led for most of the contest after goals from Ricardo Calafiori and Gabriel Magalhaes, were accused of employing the dark arts by City defenders Kyle Walker and Stones. City forward Bernardo Silva accused them of time wasting. But Arsenal boss Arteta stood by his team's approach on Tuesday, referencing their 5-0 defeat to Manchester City in 2001. Speaking ahead of Wednesday's third-round League Cup tie against third-tier Bolton, the Spaniard said his team had to play the game that we had to play. Erling Haaland threw the ball at Arsenal defender Gabriel's head after City's equaliser as Tampa's afraid, but Arteta played down the tensions. Arteta joked that he would tell his players to leave the ball alone after Trossard's second yellow card. Declan Rice was also shown a second yellow for kicking the ball away in the draw against Brighton last month. Arteta gave an update on injured captain Martin Odegaard, saying he would return from an ankle problem in a matter of weeks. The 25-year-old has missed the Gunners' past 3 games after sustaining the injury on international duty with Norway earlier this month.
Thousands of teddy bears dressed in black t-shirts emblazoned with the message, "I am not just a number, I am human with an identity," were placed on display in the capital Doha to pay tribute to killed Gazan children since the start of the Gaza conflict.
Initially showcasing 15,000 teddy bears, the exhibition titled Echo of Last Innocence is part of an initiative to bring awareness to the fallen children and to raise funds for the enclave. With each piece sold, 100% of the proceeds will be donated to the children of Gaza. Head of the collection department of Qatar Charity, Amir Al-Basari, said that after 2 to 3 days, they only have a quarter of the quantity left, adding that there has been a great turnout from all nationalities. The art installation, designed by a multidisciplinary Lebanese artist, Bashir Mohammed, will be on display until September 26 at Musharraf, downtown Doha. Mohammed said every piece represents the echo of the voice of the martyred children of Gaza who were killed due to the Israeli aggression since October 7. He added that the symbol of the teddy bear represents the innocence and childhood. The Israel-Hamas war was triggered by Hamas's attack on October 7 when the militant group killed some 1,200 people and took about 250 hostages, according to Israeli tellies. The resulting Israeli attacks has reduced the stripped rubble and killed more than 41,300 Palestinians.
That's all the news we have for today. Thank you all for watching.
ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಿಗೆ ದಾಯಿರಾಯಿ ಹಫ್ತಾ ತೆರೆಗ ಫಾಹ ಕೊಲ್ಲವೆ ಮುಹಿಮ ಮೌಲುಮಾತ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಿ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್
ದಂಡುವೆರಿಕಂ